at creating a kind of analog console style workflow in software, and I'm going to be doing that using the Waves NLS bundle basically. Now this is a track that I've been working on. Check out the other videos I've done that are on YouTube on bouncing down stems quickly in Logic and also gain staging. So at the moment this is gain stage and all the faders are down ready to start basically volume and panning and getting into the mix. But I like to use the NLS bundle from Waves to basically recreate running all the stems through an analog console. Now I've got all the faders down, so obviously it's a little bit of a strange position to start with because I can't actually hear anything until I start kind of bringing the faders up and start mixing. But the problem is that with the NLS bundle, it uses so much CPU that I find if I add it in at the end, then I start getting system overloads and it really halts my progress on the mix. So what I like to do is at this stage is basically decide what console I'm going to use, place NLS channels on each one of the channel strips, bring them back up to unity gain, so the gain staging stays as it was, and then bounce in place with the NLS plugins on there. So basically I'm printing the console sound onto the stems before I actually start mixing. But to decide what console I'm going to use, this is not a perfect way of doing it, and actually what I should do is really go in and bounce a pre-master, but I'm not going to do that for the for this video, just to make it a little bit quicker. What I've got is a kind of basic version of the track pre-mix. This is just my rough like production kind of mix with some mastering plugins slapped on, and I've just grabbed a bounce of it, and I've got the NLS bus plugin here. Now the bus plugin is the one that you use on either buses or on the master to get different sound basically, and then you have channels that go on each individual channel, and I usually use this in mastering as well. Now there's three flavors. There's Spike, which is an SSL, there's Mic, which is an EMI desk, and there's Nevo, which is a Neve desk. So what I'm trying to do here is basically audition all three types of console on this track to get an idea of which one is working best with the program material, with the music. And then I'm going to place NLS channels on each one of the channels, bounce in place, printing that effect on. So I hope everyone's clear with what I'm trying to achieve. So let's just play the track. So this is kind of a track featuring Femi Santiago. Now the vocals are from a CR2 sample pack, Sample Tools by CR2, which is the Moose T sample pack. I've worked with this vocalist before. My track Complicated features Femi Santiago from a couple of years ago that was released by Kitsune, a great singer. And I still am listening to a lot of kind of Tom Misch and stuff like that, especially Tom Misch's What Kind of Music album. And I wanted to kind of do something a little bit like that. So yeah, it's kind of, to me, it's got kind of rare groove kind of ish vibe to it, but anyway, you can hear it, make your own mind up. So let's just play it in the middle, and I'm going to take it off and then bring it in, and then I'll audition all three, and I'm going to make a quick decision on which one I'm going to use. Sorry, I just had the video going to check it was working. So let's bring it in. So it's pretty subtle, but the way I like to think about this is that it kind of gathers up the music and brings it out slightly, makes it a little bit clearer. It makes everything sound like a slightly better version of itself. And it also increases the depth. Now, this is my production mix, so it's like just everything slapped on, not really many mixing plugins on there. I have actually run a lot of the sounds through my outboard, which is underneath here. So it does have a little bit of outboard processing on it already. But let's have an audition of the three different flavors that we have here and see how they're working. So this is an SSL kind of vibe. This is an EMI. And this is a Neve desk. So I like the Neve desk, I think, the most, and it just kind of makes it bigger somehow. So just really, really close your eyes and listen to it. It just makes it bigger. Yeah, so that's what I'm going to go. It's subtle. Like, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that it's kind of it's kind of life-changing difference, but it is a difference. And this is just working on the overall mixed track. So what we're going to do now, I'm going to select all the channels, and I'm going to go to, I've got it saved into channel strips, which is like a little folder I made in my plugin preset list here. Sorry, plugin list. And yeah, I choose a channel. Now, channel's the individual NLS channel strips, basically. So it's going to take a little time. I've got all the tracks selected, so it's going to load in every single channel with an LS channel. Okay, so this is obviously looks slightly different. We've got the same 3 settings, and we have these VCA groups. Now, what it's done is it's loaded each one of these channels onto a VCA group, essentially. And what that means is that all of the different NLSs that I've loaded on are all going to be changed by clicking on these buttons here. So it's basically like one of these plugins is going to control all of them if I open up the VCA tab. So this is the individual channel. So I could actually change just the kick drum, for example. But if I click on VCA, I can now change the settings for all of them using this VCA group 1, basically. And you'll see somewhere, if I go back to the channel, yeah, so see it says now it says spike 1. If I open up the next channel, it should say, let's have a look on here. I thought it would say, so spike 21 there. Anyway, somewhere it tells you that it's working on actual individual channels of the console. So it's actually like they've basically recorded each one of the channels of the console, and they've kind of taken that recording and placed it onto individual kind of presets, essentially. So each instance of the plugin is a channel of the console. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay, so let's go back to VCA tab. So now, as I said, everything we do is going to be changing each one of these NLS channels. So if I go to spike here and change it to the Neve setting, and I'm going to take that off, bypass, it was bypass there. That now means that we have Neve settings on each one of these individual channels. So now if I select all of the channels, let's bring them in and out. So we have the, so that's the problem, is I have all the faders down because I haven't started the mix yet. So let's not worry about that. What I'm going to do is bring the faders up. And now what I'm going to do, I'm going to print this on, basically. So I don't actually need to listen to it because I've already decided that I'm going to use the Neve setting. So what I'm going to do is just bounce all these tracks in place. So I come up to here, I do bounce tracks in place, and we're going to do new tracks. We're going to include volume pan automation, turn the normalization off, click OK. And now it's bouncing all the tracks. So now we're going to be printing this NLS channel on each one of the tracks. So we're basically going to have like a software version of a Neve console on this this track. And it's actually interesting because I've got a Golden Age 1073 under my desk here, and I've got a fake LA2A and a fake Pultec as well under the desk. But the most important thing is I've got the Golden Age 1073, which is a Neve 1073 clone, and I've run the bass, I think, the guitars, the well, basically a load of the sounds. I can't remember anything that says analog. So all this percussion, I've I've run through my Neve preamp, and the thing that was mono, because it's a mono preamp, I've run through the preamp, and actually it was a Neve, the Neve setting that I went for on the NLS bus, which is quite interesting because obviously it's just gravitating towards having a kind of Neve sound to it. So that's cool. So I just want to say hi to Miguel, who's listening and watching this morning, who's given me 3 fire emojis. So that's good. How you doing, Miguel? Hope you're well. Please ask, if you've got any questions, just put them in the chat, especially while it's bouncing, and I've got to try and find something to talk about. Please, fire away if you've got anything you want me to explain. So as I said, the reason why I'm doing it this way is because I find that using this NLS channels and buses is basically really, really CPU intensive, and I can't add it on at the end without running out of CPU. And let me show you, because obviously not everyone's going to have this suite. Let me show you on here. So look, at the moment, they're only $29. So, I mean, it's really cheap for what it is. I mean, Waves, they used to be so expensive, and they've really made it much more affordable. So really, I mean, at $29, if you don't have something like this, then it's definitely something worth investing in, I would say. And I actually used to work with a guy, and we shared a studio, and he had a desk that was designed by Rupert Neve. It was AMS, I think, was the company, but it was designed by Rupert Neve. I think he left Neve, which I always find weird when someone leaves a company that's their name. It kind of seems like a strange one, but he left. Went to form AMS or join AMS or something. I think it's called AMS. And yeah, so he had this console, and I remember I was making dubstep at the time. This is years ago, and I used to run it through, and it just used to give it this kind of this amazing like width and kind of clarity and height that just wasn't there before. And I think it's good to kind of start off with. It's basically like you're going to a studio and running it through an expensive console, which is what everyone kind of wants to be able to do, isn't it? So I just wonder if I didn't set an endpoint for this. I just wonder if it's going to take forever because I didn't put cycle around these regions here, which is quite possible. So apologies for that. That means I've got to find even more. I need to fill the time while it's bouncing. So yeah, if you want to see me coming up with a track from scratch, and check out the live stream I did yesterday, because I was using a sample and kind of made a track in a day, which I haven't listened to yet. I try and work on something and then leave it like 2 or 3 days ideally before I listen to it, and then like allow my my kind of rational analytical mind to decide whether it's good or not. And actually, do you know what I'm going to do? This is the beauty of live streaming, right? Is that look what I've done here? I've set it all the way to the end here, so I've just wasted all that time bouncing the tracks to all the way to the end. So let's try that again, and hopefully it'll be a little bit quicker. Bounce tracks in place. That's all fine. Okay, so all the tracks selected, so this should be a little bit quicker because it's not bouncing all the way to the end unnecessarily. So yeah, this is something I do pretty much on every track, because I used to try and integrate NLS channels at the end of the mixdown, but as I said, I'd run out of CPU, and it would just drive me crazy because it's like you have to freeze tracks, and it's kind of then you might want to go back to the track and you have to unfreeze, and it just becomes very very kind of complicated, and it just completely ruins the vibe having to get if you get system overload messages, I'm sure you'll know it's just very, very annoying. So that's the workaround I found, is to actually just print it, get it done. It's not. I think probably ideally the best way is to add it on at the end, but if you don't have that luxury in terms of CPU, and I've got a 12-core Mac Pro, but it's quite old. It's a 2010 Mac Pro, but it's an absolute beast. It's got 48 gig of RAM, and it's really powerful, but it's old. So maybe the newer plugins, don't quite work as well on it. So what I would do is basically, as I said, print these on, and you'll see now it will make new stems, and then I'll basically bring all the faders down again, and then start the volume and panning. Basically, start kind of the mix balance, knowing that I've got all the tracks printed through the NLS software. Yeah. So it's getting milder here in the UK. I'm in the south of England, in a place called Bourne End, which is in Buckinghamshire. It's about 40 minutes west of London. And the weather's starting to change. I cycle to the studio, so I have a nice cycle. I think the coldest I cycled in winter was about -4. So I had 2 pairs of gloves on and literally couldn't feel my fingers when I arrived. I had 2 pairs of socks, and my toes, yeah, I pretty much couldn't feel my toes, but I was not as bothered about my toes. But yeah, my fingers would just be absolute agony. And one time I did it, I had wet gloves because it had been raining the day before, and I forgot to put them on the radiator, and the gloves were freezing cold. And I cycled. I thought, oh, should I wait? I really should wait for the gloves to dry. But I thought, no, I really need to get in and start work. So it was freezing cold, and I had wet gloves on, and it literally took me about an hour and a half for me to sort my hands out. I actually made a mistake of trying to put my hands under hot water to warm them up, and it was literally agony. It was literally agony. It was so painful. So I'm really happy that the weather's starting to change, and also we're hopefully, all things being equal, coming out of lockdown. So it just feels like this is going to be a good summer. It feels like there's a lot of positivity around. So I'm going to try and find a music festival I can go to this summer, get some gigs booked in. So yeah, it feels good at the moment. It's feeling good. Okay, cool. So finally, that is done. Something which really annoys me is that I took all the time to color all of my regions here, and now it's basically completely undone the color scheme that I came up with, which is quite annoying. But anyway, what can you do? So let me just take that one off. I don't know why it's got that one selected, and it should have these selected. I'm not sure why it does that. So we've got another bounce in place here, and this is the one which has got the NLS channels printed on. Okay, so now what we have is, if I click on here, obviously this is the one which had all the NLS stuff on. I've actually got some processing on here as well, like this declick from Isotope RX7 Suite, because I had some clicks on there, and that's the kind of stuff that does also use quite a lot of CPU. And really, I don't need it to be part of the mix. I may as well just bounce it in, because it's something which, it's kind of it's like it's pre-mixing housekeeping, really. So I've also bounced that stuff in as well. So now I can delete all these tracks that had the NLS stuff on. I'll delete the rough mix that I had, and now what I have is all of my channels bounce through the NLS bundle. Now we've got all the faders up, but the mix is all going to be completely out of whack because it's just been gain stage. So I need to start with all the faders down to 0 and start the mix. But I basically have everything kind of analogized, if that's a word, which it definitely isn't. So let's color things. Okay, like so. And let's add my blue for the bass. Then we've got some pianos here. Let's give them orange, little different shade for the strings, different again for the flute. So another flute. I used to do pink for vocals. And then guitars, I'll do some shades for those. And then vinyl tape, I usually give that kind of color. And there we have our kind of Neve analog style track. I'm just checking my messages to see if I have to stop live stream, but I don't, so I'm going to carry on. So so now what we've got the track. Let me just save this actually. I like to save alternatives so I can go back to different stages of the mix essentially. So this is, I call this NLS. Okay, so so I don't want to save the previous version. So I've heard people talk about it as like ascending Everest, basically. So you kind of you have different stages on your ascent of Everest, and you kind of stop at each stage and kind of regroup. And that's how I like to use these project alternatives, is to basically kind of do something major, save it, and so I can always go back and just go, right, okay, well, the compression didn't work, go back to the stage pre-compression, and then I can kind of work on it again. So that's the way I like to work. So now we've got everything gain staged, everything run through the analog equipment. What I'm going to do is start doing a bit of a volume balance. So what I like to do is bring the kick up to about minus 15 and then mix around that, which generally gives me enough headroom. So we're using this level here, the green level. Okay. So I didn't have to be exactly right. Live drums. I'm kind of trying to bring these up in order of importance. So this is what I mean about, this is why I mix with a separate hat on, because for me to focus this intently on the volume balance, I don't want to do that when I'm producing. I want this to be like, forget producing now. Now we're just mixing, and I can really go like, what does 0.5 difference sound like on this, on this disco snare or whatever it might be. Okay, so I'm trying to find the major parts that are kind of the foundational parts essentially, and make sure that they're going well. So that's what I'm trying to do, is start with the drums basically and just get the volumes dialed in. So this is like an atmospheric hat kind of sound. Okay, we've got a triangle part here. So I know for a fact I'm going to pan these, so I'm just going to go ahead and do it now. So there's another triangle part here. Now, if I notice something, I just kind of go ahead and do it. This feels like it's a little bit sloppy on the sustains. So I'm using a transient shaper just to bring down some of the sustains. Okay, this is more of a housey hat, I think. Extra ride. Just adds so much like just vibe to it, that ride. This is recorded with a guy on Fiverr, like a real drummer, as is the percussion. Oh, I just love that ride. So much kind of just splashy atmosphere. Okay, what are we left with? So we've got some drum fills here. They're quite an important part of the track. Cymbal. Wood block. Let's see what this is saying. Extra crash. Rainmaker. Every track needs a rainmaker. Yeah. Okay, we've got go-go's. Now these kind of need to work with the cowbell and be on the other side, I think. I might try the same trick with those, just tighten up the sustain a bit. Is that everything drums wise? No. Ah, this is a really important sound. Live drums. Yeah, I think that's working. If you want to check out my kind of inspiration for this track, as I said, the Tom Misch album, What Kind of Music, tracks like Festival, what's that other track? Tidal Wave, yeah, Tidal Wave, 1,000 years maybe, can't remember. That's kind of what I've listened to a lot, and I just wanted to do something a little bit like in that kind of style. Okay, so let's have a look at bringing in the bass. Keyboards. Okay, vocals. Triangle's too loud. Okay, bring this guitar in. Okay, I've got some vinyl tape hiss here. Okay. Piano. Okay, I've got a lo-fi layer here. This is lo-fi glow from Native Instruments that I use for this. Flute effects. This is kind of a washy flute sound. Strings. Another guitar here. Sunshine, shining light. Give me sunshine. Whoa, that's not right. Bass is not supposed to play there. You one more time. That's quite interesting, right? So I just chopped the bass in the wrong place. I meant to chop it at 73, but every single time I do something like that by accident, completely by accident, I always listen to it first. Because I find sometimes you do something where you didn't mean to do it. It's called a happy accident, isn't it? So I always just check, did that just random thing I just do actually sound really good? Because it's like something which is not part of your, is not part of your automatic thought process of how you work. It's something you just did by accident. So I don't know if that does sound good, but let's have a listen. Yeah, it kind of sounds cool because it goes with the tom. So I'm going to leave that in. But I think it's just a general rule. It's always good just to check whether something you've done by accident actually sounds cool. So this is the flute lick. Let's have a listen to this. So if you're just joining me on this live stream, I know the title says recreating an analog console sound using software. I've already done that bit, and I've got a meeting at 10:30, so I'm just going to carry on working. So now I'm doing volume and a little bit of panning. So if you're wondering why the hell are you supposed to be talking about analog consoles, I used NLS bus at the beginning and NLS channel to bounce in a kind of analog sound. So yeah, rewatch it later once the stream's finished if you want to check that out. But now I'm kind of doing volume. So these live drums at the end I don't think are loud enough, so I'm going to just have a listen to that. So there's kind of a sound which is maybe a little bit too extreme on here. So I'm going to use Soothe 2. So I say it's around 4K. This is an amazing plugin, by the way. Where's the bandwidth? Trying to mix. that's the kind of thing that I've been listening to that for weeks, and I've not noticed that frequency. But now I'm mixing, I can really go like, oh, what's going on there, and really hone in on it. So I don't want to do it too much, but let's just try again. I leave it on soft, but I think that works well. Now you've got to be careful with this plugin because it uses a lot of CPU. But let me see what the settings I've got. Yeah, but it's really good because they've redesigned it, Soothe 1 and Soothe 2, and oversampling you can have offline versions and online versions. So when it bounces it's going to be super high quality, but when I'm just auditioning it, it's really low quality. Not low quality, but it's just not going to use as much CPU. Cool. Okay, so is that everything dialed in now, volume wise? Guitar effects. Okay. Guitar effects, where's it gone? That's just a washy guitar effect. And there's some more guitars here. Okay, cool. Now this is all fluid. I can, obviously I can change this as I go along and do what I want. Now, there's some things I like to do before I go any further, which is look at the waveforms and just see if there's any kind of big volume discrepancies between different parts of the waveform. Now this all looks pretty solid, doesn't it? You can see here. Now the vocals, the good piano is a little bit up and down here. What that means is that it means sometimes we're going to be compressing a certain amount and sometimes a different amount, which is always, you can see here, this is much more stereo here than it is in this section here, and it's the same there. So maybe I could even think about separating them out, but I think I'll leave them as they are. But the vocal, so I didn't mix the vocal. It kind of came to me like this, and I did some work on the vocal, but you can see that there are big differences in the vocal, and that's really because actually there's two different kind of sounds to the vocal. There's this sound, which is like, I don't know if that's falsetto or no, it's just high up, and then there's this lower bit, which is much more layered. So really, they are just two different. That they really need to be on two different tracks, I would say, because if I compress just uniformly this vocal like that, when Femi's singing that part, this part here, the compressor is going to be doing one thing, and when it goes to the bigger part, it's going to be doing something different. Same with the EQ. So really, these need to be on separate tracks. What's this one? Okay. So you see now these are all kind of solid, and these are all a little bit fatter and thicker. So let's call this main vox, and let's call this high vox. Okay, and on this one here, you can see even within this vocal, there's quite a few discrepancies. Now, what I like to do here is go to what's it called now? Nectar 3 has got a really cool setting in it. Waves do a similar thing, Vocal Rider, But this ALM, automatic level matching or something, automatic enable auto level mode. Okay, so it means it will basically run the vocal and just kind of gain stage it as it's going through, or kind of like match it so it sits kind of level. So let's see what it does. So it's trying to keep it up to around this kind of area. Okay, let's take this vocal off. So let's bounce this in place and see. I hope that it's going to be a little bit more level. Well, I do actually usually pay someone to do all this because I find it takes a huge amount of time, and I've got a guy who's really good at doing all this kind of stuff. So I usually pay him. Now, let me just undo that. Do that again. I always get a little bit confused with this. So if I want to not bypass. I don't include volume and pan. I think that's a better way to do it. Vox leveled. So I want to keep. I don't want it to be bouncing it really quiet. There we go. That's better. So let's see what it's come up with. So it's a little bit more level, I think, but still, it's not as good as I want it to be. So the thing is that you might be thinking, yeah, but that's just a different articulation or a different kind of accent. He's just not singing it as loud. That's fine. You can always dial that back in afterwards, so you can automate the vocal. But if the vocal's going up and down a lot in level, it means the compressor is not going to be giving us consistent compression. So what I prefer to do is kind of decide, okay, that vocal needs to have a little bit go down in volume, let's say, but I prefer to do that with automation with consistent compression. That's just how I like to do it. I just find that it gives me good results. And sometimes I find that actually singing loud and soft, the dynamics of it are also reflected in the tone of the voice as well. So sometimes even if it's not kind of louder, actually the tone that results from singing it in a different intensity makes it feel like it is anyway. So let's see what that's like. This is a bit loud here. But now if I place a compressor on here, you'll see that we'll get a really nice even compression, hopefully. So that those are actually a little bit too loud now. Yeah, so it says it's pretty even as a result. Turn these ones down. So I like to go through the whole mix and basically just make sure that there's no areas where any compressors are going to be doing lots of compression and not very much compression. And I either separate them onto different tracks like I did with this vocal, and or add in the processing I just did then, which was using the Nectar 3 with the automatic level match. You could use Vocal Rider from Waves. And actually what I'd like to do at the end of the mix, once everything's dialed in, is then automate the vocal to make sure it just stays really consistent and really kind of level, and using really in-depth automation. That's what I like to do as well. So we have the track kind of volume-wise dialed in. It's gain staged. I've run it through the analog processing NLS kind of bundle. So now I'm kind of ready to take a break, come back with fresh ears. Let's save this as a new version. Again, another little ascent on my Everest ascent. So this is going to be volume pre-automation. That's that done. So that means I can return back to the NLS stage if I decide that actually I ruined the volume balance. But I think it's sounding pretty good. The kicks may be a little bit loud. Cool. I'm really into this track. I really like. It's really exciting to work on something in that kind of Tom Misch kind of style because I just love that album so much. Love all the drumming on it. So that's very different to the other stuff I've done. It's really I really like it. I really like the vibe of it. So I hope you enjoyed that live stream. So I'm going to sign off now. And I will be hopefully back tomorrow. I'm trying to get into doing a lot more live streaming, so I hope you find it useful. And please drop me a message or ask me some questions or put a comment in. Because I find the comments and stuff. Actually, someone sent me a message on Instagram this week saying about how much they enjoy watching me making music live, and actually, it's very kind of it's very motivating when you get feedback of how people are enjoying it. So if you do enjoy it, let me know, man. Let me know. Okay, cool. So that's the volume panning and using NLS to run things through and create a kind of analog workflow. Cheers, guys.